My grandmother crashed my house. She ran inside there with all her luggage and said, "I'm not leaving. I don't know if you forgot, but I'm the reason you have this house. I'm the one who put the down payment on it, and now I'm going to stay here, whether you like it or not." But guys, I think there's one thing that my grandmother is forgetting about. So let's ask Grandpa.
My grandmother's a greedy little woman. She's ruined everyone's life because of her greed, so let me go ahead and tell you guys how. Hey, I'm OP. I'm a 30-year-old married man, and my life hasn't always been oh so easy. I was never allowed to marry anyone or be with anyone of my choice. Because, well, my grandmother always had a say in every single thing that I did. I lived with her, actually, for almost 18 years of my life because my parents passed away when I was 8 in a traumatic car accident. It was a tough period of my life because I was a child when it happened. So to come home from school and hear that my parents were not returning to this earth, well, from their job, it was a day that I wish I never heard. My parents always tried their best to make me happy. Even when I was a kid, they kept telling me that I should only do what makes me happy and nothing else. Well, that idea shifted when I moved in with my grandparents. Now, don't get me wrong. Grandpa, he's amazing. He's the closest person to me in my life, and I genuinely appreciate having him around. However, he's very reserved and shy, so he doesn't speak much, even in front of his wife. Whenever Grandma does something he does not agree with, he just quietly sits back and accepts the fate. He doesn't say a single word to her. There have been so many instances where I've asked him to stand up to her and her stupid, illogical ideas, but he just keeps saying that there's no use in it because she's never going to understand. For her, she thinks that life is all about materialistic possessions and simply nothing else even matters. That's what makes me mad about her. She made me choose every single thing about my life based on how much money I would get out of the situation. I could not even date the people I wanted because every girl I brought over to the house, the first thing Grandma would ask me was if they had money or if they belonged to a rich family. It was so embarrassing to stand there and just explain to them that this wasn't what I thought and that Grandma's ideologies did not necessarily match mine. However, obviously it's weird for them because they're dating someone whose grandmother wants them to break up just because they're poor. That's why I understood when they told me. They wanted to break up, but it still hurt a lot. This one time, my grandmother actually brought home this one girl that she knew through a friend's relative or something, and a girl was crazy rich, like dirty rich. Which is why my grandmother was very insistent on us having dinner together. I mean, the girl was already in my house, so I couldn't really say no, but as soon as the date was over, I had a big fight with Grandma and told her to never interfere with my business again, because I would not marry someone just for the money. I guess that stood true because I did end up marrying someone who wasn't very rich. But the tricky part was that my grandma had no clue I was married to someone filthy rich. See, Sarah wasn't really poor or struggling. She made decent money, but obviously she did not earn enough to spend money without looking at the price tag, which is exactly the type of wife my grandma wanted me to have. I met Sarah through a friend at his party. It was a Halloween party, and she caught my eye the second that I saw her. The moment we made eye contact, I knew I had to go talk to her. When I did go talk to her, it turned out that we had a lot in common, and I genuinely had so much fun with her that I asked her out on a date. I did not tell my grandma about it because I knew that she would create a fuss and look into the girl's details and all of that dramatic stuff. I went out on a couple of dates with her, and then she started questioning why I wasn't inviting her to my home. That's when I told her about my grandma and her stupid issues with materialistic possessions. Thankfully, Sarah's nice, and she understood that it wasn't really my fault that my grandma thought like this. I made sure that she understood that I did not think the same way at all, and that I don't really care about money. All I cared about was if I liked the person or not, and if they brought out the spark in me or not. Even then, Sarah wanted to come to my house, so we came up with a plan that we would pretend that Sarah was rich and that she had a lot of money. It wasn't that hard, honestly, because my grandmother is really gullible. I mean, it all took, well, Sarah just wearing really fancy clothes and talking about branded things for my grandmother to think that she had a lot of money. That's when she approved my relationship, and it made things a lot easier. The only thing that I felt was just guilt, lying to her, but I knew that there was nothing I could do about it because her ideology was very messed up, and she would not accept the fact that she needed to change the way that she thought about people. Just because we have a lot of money did not mean we got to treat other people like trash or think that they were less than us. In fact, those people probably know how to treat other people, even those with much less money than them, with more respect than my grandma could ever show. It was stupid to argue and, because she never understood anyways. Okay, let's move on. A few years after dating Sarah, I decided to marry her. Till then, we were pretending like Sarah was rich and stuff, which is why Grandma was off my back. The life after marriage was pretty okay as well. I was happy, Sarah was happy, Grandma was happy, everybody was happy, until last month. So, I don't know where Grandma decided to call us and tell us that she would be visiting us and staying with us for a month or so. Before I go into details of all this, I need you guys just to understand the backstory. Basically, when I proposed to Sarah, I knew that I would have to start looking for a house, and I knew that money that my parents left me was not enough to make the down payment. So I asked my grandparents for a little bit of help. They decided that the down payment would be like their wedding gift to me, so they paid for the entire down payment and helped me in that aspect. Since then, my grandma's been thinking that the house is technically hers because her husband helps pay for it. Even when she called us to let us know that she was coming over for a month, she said that she did not really need permission because it was also her home. She laughed in the end, so maybe she was joking, but the tone was very egotistical, man. I mean, maybe she thought that she was joking, but it was not a joke to us. Especially to Sarah, because she did not like the fact that someone else was claiming ownership over our home. Well, I've tried to tell my grandma that I can pay her back if she wants me to, but she keeps saying that she's joking and all of that, so I just let it be for now. Well, anyways, we had to prepare quite a bit to have her over, and Sarah had to pretend like she was rich and keep all the fancy stuff out to show that we come from wealth. The first few days that she came, they were pretty decent. I mean, she was minding her own business and seemed happy to finally meet me and Sarah. However, a few days later, I came home to find Sarah in a bad mood, aggressively cooking dinner in the kitchen, and I could hear the click-clacks of the pan from a mile away with how aggressively she was handling them. I went in to see what she was so mad about, but she would not tell me. She just kept saying that there was nothing wrong, and I needed to leave her alone so that she could think straight. I knew Sarah needed her space whenever she was mad, so I let her be. For some reason, my grandma seemed to be in a snarky mood as well, commenting on how rude Sarah was for not having dinner with us and retiring to her room. Well, I defended my wife and told Grandma that Sarah did not mean to be rude. She was just tired. But when Grandma responded that she'd seen enough to know just what kind of person that Sarah was, I knew something major had happened while I was at work. After dinner, I went home and told Sarah what Grandma said, and the anger that radiated off of my wife was something I don't think I've ever seen before. Her eyes were blazing with anger and her lips were shut tight, like she was scared of saying something that would ruin the relationship. I told her I wasn't a big fan of my grandma either, so anything she said, I would know that Sarah was in the right. And that finally motivated her to let me know that she was wrong. As it turned out, Grandma wasn't really nice to Sarah when I wasn't around. She kept bossing her, making her do extra chores, telling her that she wasn't doing some chores properly and things like that. What made her super angry was that Grandma had implied that Sarah was not a good housewife, as she just expected to be. According to the old lady, the house was nothing more than a big mess. Honestly, I understood where Sarah was coming from, because of course it's annoying when someone tells you you're living wrong in your own home. I was completely on her side, and I told her she should not just sit by and let Grandma say those things to her. It's not even like it's her house to even say anything like that in the first place. I was completely on her side. However, things got worse in the next week or so. Grandma was continuing to be bossy and snarky, and Sarah's patience was running thin very, very quickly. So, one day, I came to the screaming and shouting match. When I went to look for the source, I found them both in my bedroom, Grandma trying to pack all of Sarah's belongings in a big old bag, and Sarah was just trying to push her out of the room, both screaming their lungs off. I went inside quickly, and I inquired about what the heck is going on. As soon as Sarah saw me, I could tell, her shoulders drooping, that she's already beyond relief to see me. So I immediately took her into my embrace and leveled with Grandma with a glare, before repeating the question, only to find out that Grandma had found out Sarah did not belong to a rich family. Well, how it happened was, Grandma was taunting and bossing Sarah again while I was at work, and somehow it proceeded into an argument because Sarah decided that she was not going to take it anymore, and replied back with a snarky comment as well. In the midst of it, Grandma was very, very proud about how she managed to keep me on track, and that the only reason I married her was because she was rich, and she had to meet Grandma's criteria. Obviously, this rubbed on Sarah the wrong way, and in the moment of anger, she let Grandma know that she wasn't actually rich. She belonged to a very modest, middle-class family. Grandma was shocked by this and ultimately told Sarah to leave the house. Well, Sarah disagreed, so Grandma came into the room and starts packing her own stuff, which is when I came in. As soon as Grandma saw that I was in the room, she starts screaming at me as well and told me that I need to break up with Sarah and just leave her to find someone who was rich and up to my standards, because she thought that I could simply do better. Well, as soon as the words left her mouth, I could only see red because of how much anger I had bottled up inside of me. There was no way that she was going to say all this to my wife right there in front of me and expect there to be any consequences at all. I told her that if she was going to talk like this, she could have just left my house too and my life, because I wasn't going to leave Sarah. I could not live without her, but I could live without Grandma's nasty remarks about everything in my life. I was sick and tired of her butting in and everything in my life. I could not marry someone I liked just because my grandma did not agree with it. Grandma kept insisting that she throw Sarah out of the house because she did not deserve to be here. But I just told her that Sarah was not going to go anywhere. If she had a problem with it, she could leave. She was shocked when I told her that she could leave. Well, her hand stopped messing with Sarah's clothes and bags at that instant. Instead, she just gaped at me, trying to understand what had just happened. However, I stayed glaring back at her, standing my ground, because you know what? I'm an adult now. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. With a scowl and a huff, she threw the clothes on the bed and rushed out of the door. Not before telling us that we would regret the decision and, she would make one just before we broke up, before making me come to apologize to her. Oh, I don't think that's going to happen, guys. Sarah and I are way too locked in with each other to even consider breaking up with one another. And that too because of my greedy, materialistic grandma who thinks she can dictate the way that I live. Anyways, guys, I want to thank you for reading. I look forward to all your suggestions that you might have for me. Update number 1. Hey guys, it's me again, OP. So, Grandma came back. She said that she would not leave the house and she would stay there as long as she wanted because her husband paid for the down payment. So you know what? She had complete rights over it. We told her that she was not welcome in the house. It's that simple. Simply because she's too selfish and asking to break a relationship up that made the both of us really, really happy. However, she would not listen to us and kept threatening to take the family apart as much as she could. We decided to just confront the situation, but it turned into a really big nasty fight. And there was no way that Grandma was going to listen to us because she was really stubborn about the whole situation. It got really bad when suddenly it felt like Grandma had a weird idea about how to solve the entire situation. She kept laughing when I told her that I would make her leave, but it felt like she was not really scared. Then she threw a bomb at us and told us that we had to pay 10 times the amount of the down payment for her to leave. The down payment was already so expensive, and the amount she was asking for was absolutely absurd, because we don't even earn that much in a whole year. We don't even have that much in savings, so it's not like we could just hand it over to her, even if you wanted to. Besides, we did not want to give her any of that money because she did not deserve that amount. It wasn't even her money, it was Grandpa's money. I told her that I was not going to pay that amount, and she smiled, went outside and brought 3 suitcases in with her and told us that she was not going to leave the house until she got the amount. She settled into the room again, and there was nothing to do to stop her. She stayed at our home for 2 more days before it started to get absolutely unbearable again. She was mean, more than usual, and always kept demeaning my wife about not having money, and at one point she would not even let Sarah enjoy the snacks in the pantry because she said she did not deserve them. I mean, how ridiculous do you have to be to stop someone from having food in their own home? Going to work was honestly so stressful for me because I knew that I would have to leave Sarah alone with grandmother. I was telling Sarah over and over that because her work was remote, she could go work at a cafe for a few hours until I get home, but she did not want to be rushed out of her house just because an old lady decided that she would not leave. At first, we decided to call the cops on Grandma, but Sarah told me that, technically, we would be facing legal issues if we did that because Grandma could always bring up the argument that she paid for the entire down payment. So, well, technically, it was her house. We could not do anything about it, so we just had to survive the situation. Grandpa was also out of town with nothing, and I could do about that as well because you'll see Grandpa's very old, so he doesn't really care about a phone and doesn't really carry it around or anything. So, I've given him one, but he always forgets about it, so it's always on charge. So, for now, I'm stuck with Grandma living in our house and making our lives miserable. Grandpa comes home in 2 days, so I'm hoping I can talk to him and just make him see sense of the situation so that he can help us out there. Until then, Sarah and I have decided to completely ignore the presence of Grandma in the house, so she knows that we don't give a crap about her opinion. Update number 2. Hey, it's OP again. So I talked to Grandpa about the entire situation. The 2 days that we're waiting for him were absolute torture. I don't know how Sarah managed to stay with her so many days, but that weekend made me feel like I was losing brain cells. It honestly felt so ridiculous, the constant snarky remarks and everything. The situation was already so dire at this point that anything we said to each other turned into a fight, and then it would take hours to deal with the situation. There was a time when Sarah and I actually had to leave because the situation got so bad. We could not stay in the house anymore, and Grandma would not leave either because she wanted money. She said she would rather die before giving up on an easy way to grab some money. However, how this was easy money was honestly beyond me. My wife and I were suffering way too much mentally for this to be called easy. When Grandpa came back, it honestly felt like there was a light at the end of the tunnel because we knew that he would help us somehow. A day or 2 ago, we went to visit him, and when we went there, he was super confused about why Grandma was not at the house. That's when we told him everything that happened in the past few weeks, and his expression clearly showed the shock that he went through, as he understood just what extent his wife had gone through to get to that extra money. When we told him Grandma was refusing to leave the house and was demanding 10 times the amount of the down payment, he made a very confused sound and asked us what basis she was doing this on. We told him that she said that she was not leaving because it was his money, and everything that was his was also hers, but, well, he told us something that completely changed the way we looked at the situation. As it turns out, the money that Grandpa used to pay for the down payment was actually Mom's money that she had left in possession of my grandfather. Mom gave me some money, and then she kept some in the possession of her dad because her death was very sudden, so she didn't really have time to plan anything. Grandpa decided that it made sense to keep the money safe until I actually needed it, and when I asked for the down payment help, he decided that it was time I needed it, so he gave it to me. However, he forgot to mention it to me and just blamed it on his old age, and how remembering things and keeping track of everything he did was getting really hard for him at this point. Anyways, we told him to come to the house so that he could tell this to Grandma. We knew that hearing it from our mouth would not be enough for Grandma, but he said he was super tired from his trip and needed a bit of rest before doing anything. Yeah, that's understandable because we basically reached the house the moment we had arrived, and because his brother lived in a whole nother city, it was quite a bit of travel. Especially because even I've noticed that Grandpa's already gotten really weak and gets tired very, very easily. Now that we know the truth, we're just waiting for Grandpa to come over so that we can throw Grandma out of the house and not have to deal with her anymore. Oh, also, because we're full of glee about the situation at hand right now, we told Grandma what her husband said, even though we knew that she would simply not believe us. Of course, we were right because she just called us liars and told us that she was going, to need an extra few thousand now because we kept lying to her and she, quote, hates liars. So she needed some compensation. Guys, I just have to say, this is honestly ridiculous. This entire situation, hopefully, Grandpa will come over tomorrow and this will be resolved. You've got to wait to hear about the update, I guess. Update number 3. Hey, so Grandpa came over. The situation is not over yet, though. Grandma is a super stubborn person when it comes to getting money. No one can stop her from getting what she truly wants, and we gathered that a long time ago. Basically, when Grandpa came over and told us the truth, Grandma was shocked. At first, she wasn't really believing anything that was happening, and though we were lying to her, she thought, just to get out of the house. But when Grandpa kept insisting that it was not their money that paid for the house, she starts to get really, really angsty about the entire situation. I think she realized that she was not going to get any money, and for Grandma, that probably felt like the world was ending. So, she huffed and puffed, but in the end, she could not really do anything, because she didn't really have an upper hand in the situation. She just grabbed her bags and made her way to the door in an attempt to leave the house with a bit of dignity. However, Grandpa had other plans for her, because he was just sitting on the sofa, not even moving an inch. Even I was confused, honestly. I glanced at Sarah to see if she knew what was happening, but she had no clue either. When Grandma opened up the door to go out, that's when Grandfather called out and asked her what exactly she was doing. That's when he dropped the bombshell, such a big one, in fact, that it shook the entire ground beneath me. Grandfather decided that his wife was acting way too greedy, and he did not want to spend his life with someone like that because he mentioned she kept bothering him in the house as well. You see, he's not the kind of person to look at other people and think that they're below him just because they have less money than him. According to Grandpa, actually, Grandma was not as excessive about it either. However, over the years, she's become very obsessive to the point where she would not let Grandpa interact with anyone who wasn't on the same social scale as them. It was getting frustrating for him, which is why he gave her an ultimatum. Grandma had 2 options. One's to change the way that she thought, to get rid of her greedy behavior. She wasn't welcomed in the house. Not this house and not their house either. All 3 of us had mirroring expressions of shock plastered on our face, but Grandma kept it on for around 3 seconds before it turned into one of anger. The response, she gave was expected, but still shocking nonetheless. She was ready to give up on the house and the relationship if Grandpa agreed to give a share of the money and half of the properties that they owed. I mean, if you think about it, she was willing to give up their whole relationship of decades, and I mean decades, just for a bit of money. That's how greedy and selfish she was and how low she stooped. Grandfather was very shocked, honestly. He did not expect her to choose that option. He thought that she'd realize that she did not have the upper hand and she would cave and try to change her thinking. However, Grandma said she wanted money, so Grandfather told her that he was not going to give her anything, that he was going to file for a divorce and get a really good lawyer, so that she would not get anything and that either. Also, she had already wasted so much money on different things, and he said that she could get to keep those materialistic possessions, but she would not get anything extra out of him. Grandma left after threatening that she would not go down this easily and she would be fighting back. But Grandpa stayed for a bit. He was too shocked to drive home, and Sarah and I spent our time with him, comforting him and telling him that we would be by his side no matter what he chose to do because we loved him and we wanted the best for him. We even offered to have him move in with us if the situation was too much for him, and we didn't really want him to be alone at this time either, but he refused and said that he did not want to intrude, and that he was, much better spending time alone so that he could think things over and just finally enjoy living without the constant need to appeal to Grandma's social ladder needs. Grandpa has also filed for divorce already, and it's going to be finalized in just a few days, or maybe weeks, depending on how long this procedure is going to take. But I know that Sarah and I will always be with him. Final update. The divorce has been finalized, and it's been a week or so since it's been finalized, and we can seriously just see the physical relief that Grandpa went through when it was done and dusted. Grandmother got all her belongings and everything, but she got no shares of the properties. No extra money as well, because all the items she got were luxurious enough. Obviously, she was not really ready to just go ahead and deal with everything on her own, without having the luxury of getting her way through money. So she came back to us begging and pleading for us to forgive her. Honestly, we might have considered it, but then she pulled this move that made us retract our decision. Let me tell you guys exactly what happened. First, she came to us and asked for forgiveness because she knew that she hurt Grandpa way too much for him to just take her in without any hesitation. But we knew that we could only forgive her for our part and not Grandpa's part. Honestly, we did not really want to forgive her. Apparently, she tried to go to Grandpa after that as well, but he just turned around and gave her a cold shoulder, refusing to forgive her. By then, Grandpa and I were feeling a bit bad about the situation, so we thought that we would forgive her and just keep her at a distance of family events and such. However, she pulled the worst move she could at this time. She trespassed on our property and tried to hit my car with a hammer, but I caught her before she could do that. We called Grandpa, who then made further decisions. We then decided that we did not want to go through the trouble of putting her in jail. So we got a restraining order against her, and Grandpa threatened her and said that if she did not want to go to jail, she needs to return all the expensive belongings she took through the divorce. Of course, that scared the crap out of Grandma, enough so she never returned after the incident. We're living in peace now, and Grandpa's so happy to have that negative energy out of his life. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end. Thank you for the comments and all the support.
So I was reading the comment section on this one, and a lot of people are saying that this was out of the ordinary for a grandpa who's been married to someone for so long would just go ahead and say, you know what, I'm done. But there was also other comments that were saying, no, this is years and years and years of Grandpa putting up with this lady, who he calls his wife, but she is very materialistic, toxic, and just over the top, and finally Grandpa's had enough. So I want to know what you guys think about his reaction, how he went about handling the situation by telling her that she's not welcome inside either house anymore, and I think the most ironic part about all this, it wasn't even their money that put down the down payment. Let's talk about this story in the comment section, guys. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every day. If you guys want to be a part of these daily readings, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.